the American government has started moving on a lot of people that they're claiming are wealthy benefactors of the American communist movement, or what exists of the American communist movement. The Spanish government already arrested Fergie Chambers, I believe his name is Fergie Chambers, who is like he's like a famous super wealthy guy from the Cox family. I believe he has like $250 million or something. He's an interesting dude, right? I don't know him. I know of him, but he has been a major donor to pro-Palestinian causes all around the world, right? He took his family money. He denounced the family. He said, fuck you guys. I'm a communist, all this stuff. And here's the thing. The American government arrested him, got him to be arrested in Spain when he was on a family trip. And now they're demanding his extradition to the United States of America. Yeah, James Fergie Chambers transferred from Ibiza to Madrid, step closer to extradition. James Fergie Chambers has been transferred to a maximum security facility in Madrid, one step closer to extradition to the U.S. Chambers faces dubious charges by the Trump Department of Justice, federal charges of international money laundering with the intent to provide material support to and resources to foreign terrorist organizations, could result in up to 30 years of imprisonment. Family and friends of Fergie call on his supporters to phone and email their country's Spanish embassy, demand no extradition and his release. It's insane. This dude has been funding a lot of pro-Palestinian charities all around the world, and that's the reason, as an American citizen, he's doing this. That's the reason why they're coming after him. They're saying that he's a terrorist. He's like offering material support to terrorist groups, and it's total fraudulent charges. But it's a huge, in my opinion, it's a huge deal because it's they're starting to move on a lot of these people. Well, number one, the fact that Spain is collaborating with the American government on this is crazy. Okay, it's totally ridiculous. We just got PSO'd again. So Pedro, what the fuck are you doing? That's ridiculous. I thought you guys were really invested in the pro-Palestine movement. The Fergie Chambers guy's a real tweaker. He was the guy who was claiming for weeks that the Bondi Beach shooting in Australia was a false flag. I know. Does it fucking matter? Yes, he's a little bit of a weirdo. Who gives a shit, dude? I don't give a fuck. What are we talking about? Oh, well, I guess lock his ass up then. I don't know him. I've only heard of him. And this is the type of guy who will say that I am a sheepdog for the fucking, neoliberal Zionist Democratic Party. I'm an imperialist. It doesn't fucking matter to me because I can understand that even people that I disagree with getting fucking arrested like this are totally, it's a significant move in the direction of fascism. An administration that comes after this dude like this, especially a wealthy guy, easily going to come after all of you as well. Like, this has nothing to do with my own personal opinions about Fergie Chambers. Okay, this has nothing to do with my own personal opinion. It doesn't matter. It's not even secondary. It's utterly irrelevant. It's utterly immaterial to the grand scheme of things. Yeah, the Fergie Chambers extradition case is what I and lots of other people have been yelling about for the last few years. Administrative or legal systems in the U.S. has created to use abroad are coming for you. Sanctions are coming for you. Terrorism designations are coming. Denaturalization is coming. Retroactive decisions about every part of your legal identity are coming. The big legal effort now by the government is to make the foreign and domestic more and more permeable, so the frontier downrange, the sandbox, Indian country is everywhere. Nikhil Pal Singh absolutely nailed it. Trump's real innovation has been to marry the archaic geopolitics of a settler empire to the modern legal frameworks devised by his liberal predecessors. This is all you need to know. And because America is all around the world all the time, there's not really anywhere you can go. You can't go to Spain. Spain is supposed to be a woke country, right? You can't be a fucking son of a billionaire with like $250 million in your bank account and fucking fly to Spain without the American government deciding you're going to prison now. If they can do that to that guy, you're fucked. I'm fucked. We're all fucked. This is terrifying, especially considering that a lot of the surveillance systems and a lot of the internet that we all use internationally is run by American corporations that have backdoors to American state surveillance agencies. It doesn't take much for them to track whatever the fuck they want to track and decide that there's sufficient fake evidence that they can materialize out of nowhere to decide that you're actually a criminal. Meanwhile, there's still fucking LARPers in the chat going, maybe you should stop supporting imperialism with your taxes then. Oh my fucking God, dude. Based, brother. Based. You're so based. Thank you for being based. We're talking about the fucking modern Fourth Reich with nuclear arms that is capable of surveilling you all around the world and managing other governments and interfering in the affairs of other governments and trying to get other governments to do the bidding of the American state. And you're over here being like, yeah, you should just stop paying taxes, dude. Yeah, you know what? Fuck it. I should just go to prison ahead of time. I'll do them a favor. Yeah, let me go ahead and give the IRS an excuse, the federal government an excuse to arrest me for good reason instead of an invented one that they will inevitably find, okay? Things in the Western liberal capitalist world are changing at an alarming pace, and no one is aware of it. I've been yelling about this for years at this point. Liberalism is over. Fascism is coming. And to a certain degree, depending on what class of citizen you are, fascism is already here. What's happening today to undocumented migrants is going to happen to you tomorrow. Your documentation, your citizenship status will not matter. We're here. It's happening. Wake the fuck up and alert your friends and your family and your neighbors and start organizing. I suspect that, yes, PSL and groups like that will get designated as terrorist groups, DSA 2 probably. This conference, I was watching clips of this conference. It's fucking terrifying, dude. It is so worrisome for the First Amendment, for political organizing in this country, and people don't realize it. Anyway, Ida Chavez says the Trump administration is trying to extradite Fergie Chambers to the U.S. and imprison him for up to 30 years for the crime of using his wealth to help Palestine and those suffering genocide in Gaza. Have any progressive members of Congress commented on this overt act of political repression? Schumer and Jeffries doing nothing? Yeah, I don't expect Schumer and Jeffries to do anything, but I expect at least like some of the more progressive members of Congress to wake up to the reality that they are in the crosshairs too. If they're not going to do this out of a principled stance against fascism, they should do this for self-interest. There is a self-interested argument here as well. Now, this moves me into the second part of this equation. The Trump administration doesn't really give a fuck about communism. They don't really care about the DSA. Matter of fact, they might even like some of the members of DSA, like Zohran Mamdani. They want to do this to every dissident. They're not taking an ideological anti-communist stance here. They think every liberal is a communist. Communism doesn't mean what you think it means. Communism doesn't mean the end state of a different economic organization of society by way of socialism, where we arrive at a classless, moneyless, borderless society. That's not what they're thinking. What they're thinking is anyone that actually is even remotely to our left is an enemy of the state. They're not us. They need to go to perma-jail. That's what it is. It's a catch-all terminology for Nancy Pelosi and myself. This is important to understand. And given the severity of the crisis and how much more pain Americans withstand, one day, even if you like the government right now, which, none of you in here do, but you might have family members who like the government right now and everything that Trump is doing right now, one day they won't. And then they will be in the crosshairs. This is important to understand. So to the Democrats, I say, if you think that this is just going to take care of your problems in the short term, the problems that you're foreseeing from the growth of the socialist movement and the DSA candidates that are making your jobs a lot harder because now you actually have to legislate. Now you actually have to put the needs of the masses first. If that's like if you're like secretly excited, Neera Tanden, you're going to prison too. Like, this is what I mean. Third Way, Center for American Progress. These groups think that the Trump administration is doing a wonderful job going after these disgusting commies. Okay. What they don't realize is the Trump administration finds them to be enemies of the state as well. As a matter of fact, probably more people in the Trump administration hate those guys and the liberals that have controlled the Democratic Party than they do people like myself. So this is the other side of the story. They are going to say that China tried to steal the election. I suspect they'll try to tie this back to Roy Singham, the guy we talked about before, the wealthy guy that lives in China. And this is going to be their sufficient reasoning for trying to prosecute PSL and all these other groups, these front organizations. And then they'll try to extend it to Democratic Socialists of America as well. And they won't stop there. They'll say that all of the votes in Georgia, for example, for the John Ossoff and Raphael Warnock special election were also fake and phony. They'll try to, overturn those results, which I'm just spitballing here. But basically, they're going to say that there's this grand conspiracy that ties, the Communist Party of China to American socialist movements and organizations, and that extends all the way into the Democratic Party as well. And if the Democrats think that this takes care of the insurgency problem that they're experiencing right now, where voters in the Democratic primaries are excitedly voting for Democratic Socialists or, DSA aligned candidates, if they think that this is going to help their goals of maintaining the duopoly, their goals of maintaining the bipartisan nature of the House of Representatives and the Senate, and their singular focus on defending Israel, for example, they're fucking stupid. McCarthyism is coming back. My hope is that liberals will wake up to the reality and be on the right side this time, okay? Because if it's socialism or barbarism, I don't think liberals want to live in a world where fascism is the norm. I know that some will. I know that some will be collaborators, but I still believe that the overwhelming majority of self-identifying liberals, hopefully, will not want to exist in this space. They hate these people. Trump is not popular enough to do this, but it doesn't matter, chatter. What you don't understand is Trump is not popular enough to do this. But guess what? This is not the actions of a strong state anyway. Only weak governments and weak states and weak movements engage in this kind of action, engage in this kind of repression. I've seen it. I've seen it with Erdogan in Turkey. That's what's going on. Viktor Orban in Hungary, Vladimir Putin in Russia, Erdogan in Turkey. These are the actions of a state that is engaging in repression because they no longer have the mandate. They might have at some point, but they no longer do. And they recognize that. So it's an act of desperation to maintain some kind of law and order by using the most militant aspects of the state to repress any kind of political dissent that ranges from, again, Nancy Pelosi to people like myself. Yes, animals are the most dangerous when they're cornered. Here is one dangerous animal who says, the NSPM-7 will lead to debanking, defunding, and disruption of left-wing political terrorists that are operating in our country.
President Trump issued a directive in our parlance. It's called a National Security Presidential Memorandum, or NSPM. NSPM-7, to be exact, that directs, for the first time in American history, all of our law enforcement and intelligence agencies to work together to disrupt, identify, defund, debank, arrest, and prosecute these political terrorists that are operating in our country.
Dude, it's fucking genuinely terrifying. I mean, this is all systems go. I've been ringing the alarm bells alongside Ken Klippenstein on this stuff already, but they are going to try to tie, I think, the international left movement back to, because there's no domestic terrorism statute. That doesn't mean that they can't prosecute people under a terrorism definition regardless, which they have done so, like in the case of the Prairieland 5, right? Or 8, sorry. These guys were setting up fireworks outside of a detention facility where non-citizens were being housed or being detained. Cops show up. One of the guys has a gun, shoots back at the cop. Cop survives. They arrested every single person that not only was there and prosecuted every single person as a part of an Antifa terror cell, but they prosecuted every single person, including a guy who wasn't even there, and they threw the book at him. He's going to prison for 30 years for simply carrying magazines. Not magazines for a gun, by the way, like actual literary magazines. 30 fucking years. It's understandable that there's going to be some prosecution for a guy who shoots a fucking cop, okay? I'm sorry. That's just how the law works. That's understandable, okay? It's going to happen. But the very fact that every single person is considered an accessory to that crime, regardless of their level of involvement, including people who weren't there, is insane. It's fucking insane. So it turns out, regardless of the lack of domestic terrorism statutes that exist in the United States of America, because it directly contradicts the First Amendment, our criminal justice system is currently operating as though there is a statute. It's not reasonable that Song got 100 years. He literally saved someone's life. Guys, I'm not talking about how long his sentence is, okay? I'm not discussing how long his sentence is. I'm saying, of course, there's going to be people that are prosecuted if a fucking cop gets shot, even if it's an act of self-defense by the person who shot the cop, okay? I'm saying it's understandable that there was a prosecution that took place in that instance, okay? What's not appropriate in any way, shape, or form is not only the long sentences that they got, but also the fact that there are people who were not even there. One of the girls who got 50 years literally picked up the trash from their fireworks. She's 30 years old. Her whole life is gone. People are completely oblivious to what's going on. The feds are reviving a Nixon-era counterterrorism framework that hasn't been used in decades. Trump summons poltergeist to go after opponents. This was 2 days ago. Out Iran diplomacy in diplomatic summit, rooting out left-wing political terrorism. This is from 2 days ago. I'm sure Ken will write extensively on today's counterterrorism summit that's taking place. The resurgence of political terrorism is the summit.
Last November, the State Department designated 4 violent far-left extremist groups as foreign terrorist organizations, and there will be more designations soon. Last November,
as I was saying, because there's no domestic terror statute, because there's no domestic terrorism statute, because it directly contradicts the First Amendment, what they're trying to do is claim that any leftist with an internationalist framework, any leftist that's any left group that is, against America's actions in Cuba, against Americans' actions in Gaza, against Americans' actions in Iran, and liberals too, are technically a part of this broad, all-encompassing foreign terror cell. That's what they're trying to do. They are trying to whip up any kind of restraint that Americans are demanding for its unbelievably militaristic foreign policy apparatus as a significant threat to the interests of the state as terrorists. In Political Terrorism Summit, Treasury Secretary alleges a new operation alliance between international Marxism and radical Islamist movements
are now giving way to new operational alliances. The unified front between international Marxism and radical Islamic movements need not share the same ultimate vision to share the same immediate enemy of free and self-governing society. That convergence should concern every government represented in this room.
Yeah, there's 65 governments that have signed on board for this, by the way, just so you understand.
These terrorists understand and
yeah, this also, obviously, considering that many people organize on the internet and they can still maintain a sense of anonymity on the internet, what do you have to do? You have to make sure that everyone is de-anonymized, that there is no more anonymity on the internet. Where do you think the ID laws are coming from? All around the world. This is a part of it. They want to make sure that they surveil you every step of the way, no matter where you go. They start off with these digital IDs. They can identify you on the internet, and they can designate you as a terrorist. And because the terrorism statute in this country is specifically designed to be all-encompassing, specifically designed to take away your due process rights, anyone that is declared a terrorist can be prosecuted like that. Evidence is not necessary. Real evidence is not necessary. A real crime does not need to take place. They can just determine that you are a criminal because you are a terrorist. America did this in the global war on terror to random Muslims all around the world. They would just black bag people, put them in CIA black sites and torture them, and then ship them to Gitmo and continue torturing them.
Enduring truth. Societies are rarely subverted from afar until they have first been weakened from within. Meanwhile,
isn't this way worse than McCarthyism by like 1,000? Yes, because technological advancements have made it so that people can organize anonymously on the internet, or people can let their opinions be known on the internet anonymously under the guise of anonymity. But that also has made it so that there are new mechanisms of surveillance as well. This is a real emergency. And my fear is most people are utterly oblivious to it. Part of the reason why is because Democrats that are also a part of the intelligence apparatus think that the intelligence community is infallible and they like this shit. And they think that the intelligence community is not moving in this fascist direction. Straight up. Because there are Democrats in the intelligence community as well. There's literally CIA Democrats, for example. But they also think that these kinds of actions are appropriate and good. They are not thinking about how this is going to inevitably be used against them. This might literally be our last shot, our last chance before complete fascist takeover, using all of the available tools that technology has given them, where your thoughts can be analyzed and determined to be dangerous, where you can be arrested literally, like in the way that conservatives, you know, how they used to exaggerate and be like, thought crimes, like it's coming. Like that's real. Considering that advertisers already know exactly how to map out a psychographic profile to figure out exactly when you're more likely to pay more for an American burger from McDonald's, they can use similar AI-based technologies to map out if you are having bad thoughts against the government, and determine that you're a threat to the state, determine that you're a terrorist, and decide to prosecute you and throw you in jail. That is the new design, and people are completely oblivious to it. Terrifying prospect. And it doesn't just, by the way, this is, if you want to understand how this is going to be impactful across the board, if you think that this is just going to be like, you know, lefty losers, communists or whatever, make no mistake. I've seen the terrorism designation. I've covered it extensively on this broadcast. Okay. I covered the terrorism designation on this broadcast. Is all encompassing. They say anti-American behavior, anti-family behavior is considered a telltale marker for terrorism. Okay. So it's not just going to be people like us. It's going to be the fucking people that tune into the pod Johns. It's going to be people, grandmothers, grandfathers that go out and protest at a No Kings rally. If you think it's just going to be liberals, you're also wrong. They're already adding additional statutes. The Marco Rubio-led summit tomorrow will unveil a new terror designation for militant anti-tech and anti-Semitic networks. That's right. U.S. is targeting anti-tech, pro-Iranian, and anti-Semitic networks with new 3-letter designation. So first it was just like anti-Christian behavior, right? Anti-family behavior, anti-American behavior. But now, if you have an opinion on a data center being built in your backyard, which as we know is not a partisan issue at all, it is the most nonpartisan issue. Israel and data centers are some of the most across the board nonpartisan issues that Americans are facing right now. As a matter of fact, given that it's oftentimes being built in rural neighborhoods and rural communities, there are a lot of Republicans who fucking hate this shit. Now they will be considered far left terrorists. America's waging war with Iran. Overwhelming majority of Americans are against it. But if you demonstrate against the war in Iran that the overwhelming majority of Americans are against, you're a terrorist. Well, what do? You look at the polling. If you're anti-war, you're a terrorist. If you're anti-data centers being built in your backyard, you're a terrorist. If you're anti-Israel, you're a terrorist. That's the future we're looking at. Eventually, I mean, if you're anti-capitalist, you're a terrorist, obviously. If you're against flock cameras, you're a terrorist. If you're against mass surveillance, you're a terrorist. If you're against companies placing the interests of profits over the interests of the people, you're an anti-capitalist, and therefore, you guessed it, you're a terrorist. If you're trans, you're a terrorist, obviously, the biggest. States' talking points drop any pretense that this is a politically neutral endeavor. Officials are instructed to rely on the following talking points per the leaked documents. We go where the threat is. Political terrorism is resurgent, and the far-left terrorism specifically poses a unique and distinctive threat today. Addressing and defeating that is the focus of the ministerial. The United States has observed a concerning convergence between violent far-left and anarchist networks and other violent extremist actors, including violent pro-Iranian and anti-Semitic networks, as well as militant anti-tech and eco-terrorist movements. This is a trend we are monitoring closely and engaging partners to address. The ministerial will focus world attention on the resurgence of political terrorism and bring together the United States and foreign partners to address the terrorist actors, particularly far-left terrorist networks operating across Europe, Asia, the Western Hemisphere, and beyond, and focus on improving coordination, information sharing, and practical law enforcement cooperation to counter political terrorism, including violent far-left attacks on law enforcement, critical infrastructure, political figures, and state institutions. Political terrorism is resurgent, particularly among far-left terrorist networks that have grown more sophisticated. They leverage decentralized cell structures, encrypted communications, and transnational coordination to carry out attacks on rail energy, and telecommunications infrastructure, as well as targeted violence against political figures and their families. When has this happened? Like, what the fuck are you talking about? The only time where there have been coordinated attacks, or at least like lone wolf attacks that are triggered, they come from Telegram, and they're far-right white nationalist neo-Nazis, esoteric neo-Nazis. If you're looking at Order of Nine Angles, that's far-right, and they're shooting up mosques. They're trying to kill black and brown people. If you're looking at attacks on the infrastructure, attacks on critical infrastructure, again, that's Atomwaffen, another far-right neo-Nazi movement. None of these are communist movements. None of these are communist movements. And of course, obviously, the administration famously the DOJ deleted its own study from the website showing far more domestic terrorism is committed by far-right extremists. This was back in September 2025. In 2024 alone, there were 21 far-left and anarchist terrorist attacks in the EU, nearly matching the number of jihadist attacks that year. These are not isolated incidents, but a part of a sustained transnational campaign of political terrorism that is growing in sophistication and lethality, aimed at dismantling the foundations of self-governing societies. The Department of State is committed to confronting organized political violence, including from far-left terrorists and other aligned groups that engage in or support terrorist or criminal activities, economic sabotage, or support far-left terrorist-led violent actions. In support of this effort, the Department of the State is announcing a new visa restriction policy that targets members of far-left terrorists and other aligned groups who have supported or incited acts of terrorism, supported violent criminal activity, participated in economic sabotage, including against public and private property, financed, recruited, or provided logistical support for violent or criminal actions committed by far-left terrorists and other aligned groups, and or facilitated the convergence of far-left terrorists and other aligned networks for the purposes of economic sabotage. This policy will protect U.S. citizens and safeguard the American homeland by restricting entry of foreign nationals who finance, recruit, incite, or otherwise enable terrorist, violent, and criminal far-left terrorist networks, closing the visa pathways that far-left terrorists, blah, blah, blah. Look, this is a State Department enforcement, and that's precisely the reason why they're trying to say, like, oh, these are immigrants that are doing this. It starts with non-citizens on U.S. soil, both documented and undocumented. This is why they went after Mahmoud Khalil. Mahmoud Khalil has a wife that's an American citizen and a child that is an American citizen. Mahmoud Khalil himself is a legal permanent resident, a green card holder, one step removed from becoming a naturalized American citizen. But they went after him and they tried to remove his First Amendment protections, even though technically, if we're taking an honest look at the First Amendment, everyone on U.S. soil is covered by the First Amendment. Everyone, citizens and non-citizens alike, undocumented citizens and documented citizens alike. That is the law. That's the faithful interpretation and application of the law. But the administration has tremendous powers over non-citizens because the State Department can just like revoke visas and shit like that, which they tried to do for Mahmoud. That was a huge test, and people did not comprehend how big of a test that was for the First Amendment. Because if we take away a piece of the protection that exists for the First Amendment, if we just decide that non-citizens, or rather green card holders, legal permanent residents, and documented non-citizens are no longer eligible to be protected under the First Amendment, then eventually it's going to move to documented and natural-born U.S. citizens and naturalized U.S. citizens as well. First, it'll be the undocumented migrants, which has already happened. Then it'll be the documented migrants, which almost happened with Mahmoud Khalil, and they're still trying to do that. Then it will be naturalized U.S. citizens that are on the verge of denaturalization. And then, lastly, it will be natural-born U.S. citizens. The administration is trying to jump ahead of the line all the time. The Trump administration tried to, by executive order, decide that birthright was not real. That's a stretch. You wake up, buddy. Wake up. It's happening. What are you talking about? The fucking Trump administration openly said birthright should not exist. There was a Supreme Court case that came close to destroying precedent designed in like 1868. What are you talking about? Precedent that has been defended legally over and over again for hundreds of years. What are you talking about? Do you not read the news? What do you think that is? If they were to take out birthright citizenship, they could then go back and retroactively start denaturalizing people that they decide are quote unquote birth tourists. You know, people like myself, they say I'm a birth tourist. That's the goal. You're a frog in a boiling pot and they keep increasing the temperature and you are unaware that you're boiling.